Today I have Chris Donnellan.
The first high, those first like big, bubbly, like tail slapping days when you're like, good God, like all I want to do is fish every day for the rest of my life. And then you go out and get skunked. And I just messaged the guy and I'm like, hey, I'd like to buy your boat. And the guy's like, okay, cool. You want to come by and see it? And I was like, no, I'm in Africa. I can't. I'm just going to send you money. And he's like, oh, sure, man. Yeah, like, okay.
Yeah. You're
next you're going to tell me
Saudi
you're the
prince that
the
is,
deposed son
needs
of
money.
us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to send you a check for $100,000 and you're going to send me back whatever.
Welcome to another episode of the On the Water podcast. It's beautiful.
Let's go!
Everglades Boats is an industry leader in premium offshore fishing boats. Founded in 1997 by boating industry legend and former Boston Whaler executive Bob Doherty, Everglades revolutionized the boat building industry with the invention of the ram cap process for one-piece unsinkable hulls. Respected for its renowned hull ride, Everglades builds center console and hybrid boats from 25 to 45 feet that make a statement about the status and savvy of their owner. Everglades has received numerous industry awards and achieved an unparalleled reputation for superior safety, performance, and quality. For more information about Everglades Boats, stop by your local dealer or visit evergladesboats.com. Everglades Boats, built for beyond. Welcome to another episode of the On the Water podcast. I'm Jimmy Fee. Anthony Cheech sitting across from me. And Cheech, who are we talking to this week?
We got Special Forces, Chris Donnellan, Green Beret, active military, just all-out legend.
And passionate fisherman on top of it.
Loves to fish. It was right around Memorial Day, and it was some tie-ins with some local charity work that we work with Fishing for the Mission 22. This is how his name came up, and we had him in for an interview, which was pretty awesome.
But before we talk to Chris, we want to talk a little bit about some of the summer fishing we've been doing. In particular, I did something I don't usually do, and that is leave the Northeast in June. I try to anchor myself somewhere between, let's say, New Hampshire and Connecticut, because June is the month for striper fishing. But I did get pulled away for a very good reason down to Florida for Quantum was running a writers camp, which is kind of a media trip. They had some writers from magazines around around the U.S. I fished with Captain Cody Rubner, who is he's from New England originally, from Cape Cod originally, but he
Belchertown, I think, actually. But he spent a lot of time on the Cape, fishing the Cape. I think he's originally from Belchertown. If I'm wrong, then he can give me crap for it.
So he moved down to Florida a few years ago and is a guy down there, High Roller Charters, and has a great program. He kind of learned under the tutelage of Mike
Holiday.
Mike Holiday, that's right, who was a legendary guy down in those parts. And is it the Treasure Coast part of Florida? That whole area?
It's the right coast, Jim.
But
it's the Atlantic coast.
So down there, ahead of the trip, talked to Sam Zayak, who's the marketing manager for Quantum, and he said, just asking him, I said, what can we expect to catch down there? Because I don't know Florida that well. I know we usually go and try to sneak an ICAST trip in the middle of July. I've gone there in the winter, and he said, you've got snook, you've got tarpon, you've got jacks, you've got any number. He rolls off like a dozen different species that you might catch.
The typical Florida, any of these things could show up.
It's kind of a, go out there with some live baits and some lures and whatever the day presents. Cody Rubner, when I talked to him, he described it as, it's kind of like being a guide in Florida. It's kind of like being a chef. He's like, you open the fridge and you don't know what ingredients you have each day, but then you just put them all together and you somehow make a meal out of it. So I've never caught a big tarpon ahead of this. I didn't even think this was really on the list because it's not, I guess you don't think of that part of Florida. We're near Jupiter. I'm terrible at knowing where I was. We fished Palm River Cottages out of Jensen Beach, Florida. So not far from St. Lucie Inlet. So I don't know that area as a tarpon area. Like if I don't know a lot about tarpon fishing. I know the Florida Keys are great. I know Miami's great. I know you have places on the Gulf side that are very good. But the tarpon, not unlike the stripers, do a big northward migration this time of year.
Yep.
So they're running north from the Keys along the Atlantic side of the beaches, and some of them will go as far north as the Chesapeake Bay. Chesapeake guys in there have been seeing more tarpon
Yep.
in recent years in Virginia.
We've had a few strays venture either further northward.
We've had 3
Yeah.
in the last 2 seasons get caught in New England. Last year, there were 2. Last year, somebody fishing the Martha's Vineyard Derby with a chunk of bluefish caught one
It's crazy.
from the beach. They've all been from shore,
Yep.
and they've all been on bait.
Yep.
2, I think, were no. 1 was fishing chunks for
Brown
bluefish, for brown sharks. That was the one
Yep.
on the Cape.
Yep.
That was either a piece of bonito or a piece of bluefish, and that kid caught one in one of our favorite sharking spots.
Yeah.
where we have spent many hours catching brown sharks. I can't even imagine hooking up and having something go ballistic and jump out there in the dark.
Dude, imagine the feeling of like, you know what the gill rakers sound when a tarpon jumps. Imagine being like, wait, is this a dream? Like, what's happening right now?
What an amazing!
Because you would know instantly.
The other one was some kid in Rhode Island, a young guy
Surfcast.
who seemed like he was a relatively new surf fisherman. He went out and caught a tarpon on a live eel.
Was it?
Yep, that was on a live eel. And,
Wow.
throughout none of these experiences up here, or any of the tarpon fishing I've really heard of, did anybody mention the fights being so hard and long and really pushing you to the edge of your physical limit?
They have some fight in them. A lot of times the fight doesn't last that long to really figure it out. They're so commonly associated with like jumping you off like pretty early on in the fight, and hooking them and jumping them is the best 2 things about tarpon fishing. But fighting them can be a real conundrum.
So tarpon are
A
one of
real
those
struggle.
They're one of those species where there's a different metric for catching. I jumped 10 tarpon,
Yeah.
whereas if I went and said, I jumped 5 bluefish today, people are like, what? Who cares? Who cares what you did? But if you get to the point of the jump, and you talk to some more jaded Floridian fishermen down there, where they're like, oh, I get a couple jumps and I break them off. That's all I want. And I mean, I couldn't imagine getting to that point until recently, when Cody Rubner and I are out there and we see a string of tarpon coming up the beach. We ran out the inlet, and there were 5 or 6 boats that went out with the different riders and the folks from Quantum. And every captain kind of had their own program. One guy went offshore for sailfish, another guy stuck in the back to look for snook. Some other people went and fished some of the wrecks and did some bottom fishing. And what Cody likes to do is he likes to, and this is like a lot of the good captains I fish.
I love Cody for it.
They love to burn gas, and he loves to, maybe he doesn't love to burn gas. He doesn't mind burning gas. He loves to run, is what I should say. And he covers ground to look for schools of fish along the beach. And the fish we assumed we were going to see were jacks, because this is the time of year when you have the big migration of these big jack crevalles. And he's doing some work on trying to figure out where these jack come from, tagging them, studying the DNA and stuff of those fish to learn more about them, because they are they're like our bluefish, where they're kind of a lesser loved species there, but they're a great hard fighting fish that the people coming from the Northeast love.
They're underappreciated. We appreciate them a lot, but down there they're not all that appreciated. A lot like the false albacore. which
Exactly.
we can go down on that tangent too, but we won't. I love Cody because he's all about zigging when everyone else is zagging. Like, he will not do the easy program where it's like, I'm gonna hit this snook spot, this snook spot, this snook spot, and if the weather's nice, we'll bump out and slow troll for some offshore stuff. He'll still do all that stuff.
He's got it in his deck of cards, but
yeah.
if he has the conditions and everything's looking right, that's what he likes to run the beaches. And we didn't see any other boats.
Yep.
By the time we're going up there, and we see some nervous water. Saw one school of jacks, not interested in eating, and they were heading south. Those fish, and he goes, "Oh, they're southbounders." He goes, "When they're swimming south, they're tougher to catch." I'm like, that can't possibly be a thing. He goes, "No, it is." He goes, "For whatever reason, the fish that are heading north are more likely to eat than fish heading south."
It's interesting.
Then we saw another patch of nervous water, and as it came closer, you start seeing fins through it. And he goes, "Oh, those are tarpon." I'm like, "Oh, wow. Yeah, we've seen tarpon with them before, a couple of rollers. This was not a couple.
Yeah.
This was 100 fish in a string, and they were steadily moving north, just a big patch of them." And I guess because of my previous experience, I didn't think one would eat a live bait. You know, you're like, there's no way. So
We've soaked plenty of live baits on resident tarpon down his way, and they've just not eaten.
because these fish aren't really eating, they're moving. He said they kind of eat along the way. So flip a live pilchard out in front of them, and I cast too far ahead of the school. So I brought the bait fish at that point, had enough time to get away from the line of fire there. Next cast, I dropped a little closer to the fish, and one comes right up and eats it.
Did you see the eat? Or did you just feel it?
I just felt it. So I don't think I would lose track of the bait after it landed. So it swam. It had no good way to go, the second one. And the fish ate it. I felt it. And the circle hook locks up. And I'm like, oh, I couldn't believe it. I was attached to the tarpon. I'm ready for the jump. Like, here we go. Here's what you sign up for. You know, to get there, you get the big tarpon jump. And as long as I get to that point, I get a look, get eyes on this fish, then even if I lose it, I'm a happy camper. I don't need to put hands on it. I just want to see it jump once or twice. And it never jumped. And the fight goes on, and this fish kind of keeps digging out offshore. And the setup I'm using was lighter than what we'd use for tuna fishing. So it was a Strive 6000.
Quantum.
A Quantum Strive 6000, which is their, I think it's a $130 reel.
Yeah.
So the benchmark is their currently the highest level of reel they offer. That's going to be changing in July. We can't talk about that just yet, but beginning in early July, Quantum's got some big new gear announcements coming out just ahead of ICAST. We'll definitely cover that. We got to play with some of those reels, and they look great. But the Strive is currently their lower price point reel. And the 6,000 size is a size I would put on a surf rod. So it would be like the size of maybe a Van Staal 200, maybe a 250. And the rod was a Quantum Myth rod rated, I think it was the 15 to 30. Maybe it would be a good stout striper rod for throwing the dock. Maybe a little heavy for that. Maybe a little bit heavier. But it was so that was the setup I'm using. This fish takes off, never jumps. And then Cody early on goes like, oh, like, this is going to be a problem. And he said usually when they jump, they burn a lot of their energy off. Like you would think it takes a lot of big investment to go and do what they do cartwheels. They come clear out of the water. They're shaking their head. They're going frantic. And this fish was just a slow burn. We got one look at it because he doubled back and kind of saw him ghost past the boat about 10 feet down. And I got a look at him. And again, I don't really know what I'm looking at. Cody's like, oh, he goes, that's a big fish. He goes, that's a pretty good fish. And then it takes off, and oh God, dude, we fought a lot of tuna together, you and I, and we fought giant tuna together on jigging tackle. And I don't want to imply that they're stronger than giant tuna. They're not. But the fight is more, it's more scattered. You have to do more when you're fighting a tarpon than when you're fighting a tuna. There's a lot more movement on the deck. You have to have some footwork.
You think you can do more when you're fighting a tarpon, but it's the same kind of techniques when you're fighting a tuna, where you really want to lean on them the right way, and you're always trying to put pressure against where that fish is wanting to go, to always have, because you want to break the fish quickest, and you feel like you can do that with tarpon more so than sometimes with tuna. It's helpless. You know what I mean? And it's just like, let's just stay tight to this thing. But tarpon, you feel like you can, and it ends up tricking you into exerting a lot more energy in a shorter period of time, I feel like.
Yes. So with tuna, you kind of settle in. You can settle into a tuna fight where I'm going to get here. I'm going to make my triangle where I've got my one rod straight to the rod, my one arm straight to the rod, other reels or other hands ready to reel. I'm leaning back. I've got the rod pressed into my hip or in a belt, and that's where I'm going to stay for pretty much the entire fight. We'll get to the point where it's circling, and that's going to the tuna's going to do its very predictable tuna circle, and you can. The tarpon wasn't like that. It would what Cody warned me about, and then this started happening. He goes, it's going to come up, and even if it doesn't jump, it's going to try to gulp air because they're air breathers. Part of what makes them such fascinating fish is they're able to get oxygen from the air as well as the water, and that allows them, the juveniles, to go and grow in these, really kind of anoxic waters, deep into the backwaters where there's no oxygen because they can breathe the air. They're eating the mosquitoes and mosquito larvae way back. So it's it's an adaptation that allows them to survive as juveniles that they still can use as adults. And he said every time that thing gulps air, count on adding more time to this fight. Okay. He said, you're wearing it down when it's underwater, but when it gulps air, it's going to get another burst. He said, so when it does that, when you feel it coming up, you need to change the position and try to pull the line directly across its back and mess up its attempt to gulp air. What a foreign concept for fighting a fish for me. Like I've never had to do anything like that. So first time it comes up, it gulps air. I don't successfully do anything to hinder it. It gets a nice deep breath, and then again
proceeds to kick your ass some more.
Kicks my ass some more. Then the next time I kind of had it, and it was really interesting. I could tell he came up. I pulled as hard as I could straight down his back, and like his head knocked at the wrong point, and it seemed pissed off. Like it freaked out, took a little run. And at this point, we'd moved out from, say, 15 feet of water where we hooked it, and we're now in 25, 30 feet of water, and that's another problem, Cody said. It seemed like everything that could have gone wrong for this fight was going wrong. Like he said, they get to deep water, and they will just sulk down there, and they're very tough to lift. The runs themselves weren't big, heavy runs, so like fast runs. It was just kind of a slow bleed of drag throughout the fight, and we were constantly ratcheting up the drag on the strive. The drag felt great throughout the fight. We got to by the end of it, you couldn't pull it out with your hand, and the fish was still taking line, but still perfectly smooth. And man, by the time it just would linger like 50 feet away from the boat. You know how tuna kind of have that safe distance too, where they're like, the giants at least, they're going to sit here, and you're not going to be able to move them from there until they are totally gassed. And this fish had its comfort zone, and it kept 50 feet between it and the boat. And I would get a couple feet, he would bleed a couple feet back out. And then finally he came into view. And once he got into view, you get the color, and you're like, okay, the end's in sight. Yeah. But when the end doesn't come quickly after you see it, like you've put everything into that, and things were shutting down for me, for old Jim.
We did get a full play-by-play from Cody, from Captain Kobe, Cody himself.
He was very encouraging, and I'm sure very diplomatic during the fight. Like other captains in the Northeast, I think, would have been yelling a little bit at some of the stuff I was doing. I did some unconventional.
You doing the broomstick ride, Jim?
No, I did not do the broomstick.
Pull that one out?
I didn't. Where I put the rod between my legs like a surf. That's a surf fishing. I know. It's a surf fisherman in me coming out.
It looks so out of place on the tuna ground. So I always give you shit for it.
So no, I did at one point I was leaning with my left hand on my knee and just holding the rod and like catching like taking a breather after I ran a sprint. It was it hurt. Everything hurt. But I'd never heard of anybody passing off a rod on a tarpon. I wanted to do it myself. But partially because, one, there's like old men chasing fly rod records of tarpon doing this with fly tackle, and they're not handing off the rods. Like I read the book Lords on the Fly, and you have all these guys like Tom Evans with much more, relatively more rudimentary tackle in the 70s and 80s, catching tarpon bigger than the one I'm attached to. So like
no, there's no passing it on a tarpon.
Okay, so you're going to go down. That's on the record. You don't pass the rod on a tarpon.
No, I mean I don't like to pass the rod at all. But like sometimes I have had no choice with tuna and stuff. But like you got to draw the line somewhere. That'd be like being like, oh, dude, this striped bass is giant. Here, take this. Like, could you ever see yourself doing that? No, but a striper's never going to fight you for an hour. No, that's true.
Yeah, tuna fishing, you have no problem passing the rod. No. I don't have that much pride when it comes to, I have very little pride in general.
It's a young man's game, and I've accepted it. Here, take this.
I don't need to solo a giant tuna. I am happy to make that a team effort. But with this thing, it just felt like, I don't want to be the first guy ever to pass the rod on a tarpon.
I would be extremely disappointed in you if you passed the rod.
I know that was. I could hear your cackling. If
you would have never lived it down, dude.
And to make matters worse, too, not worse, but part of this media event is Quantum had a camera boat that was following around taking really beautiful pictures. And
the call came in pretty early.
When we hooked the tarpon, Cody called them. Marcos was the photographer. He works for Rather Outdoors, which is the parent company of Quantum. And they came over and were documenting the fight. And so I also, knowing that there was some film and some photography happening, I did not want to pass the rod then either.
Of course not.
But the downside of that is we got a lot of pictures of what was a quickly deteriorating Jim fighting this tarpon. And long story short, the toughest part was that it got to the boat. Instead of doing a nice clean tuna circle, it's doing these figure eights. and where Cody would be trying to grab the lower lip to secure it, its head would go under the boat and its tail would come up, and there would be nothing to grab on this fish. And you're not going to net it. You can't harpoon it or gaff it. So you got to get a lip grab on this thing. And it did 5 or 6 of those. And at one point, like I've got 1.5 foot of line out, and just it feels like my muscles are getting torn apart on my back. I am completely out of breath. My vision is constricting from the sides. You ever have that like in football practice where like
when
you're
you're just everything's you don't know how it's going to end up.
So eventually Cody gets a grip on the fish, and with that letdown, there was relief, and then there was some comeuppance of.
You blew lunch, Jim.
It was breakfast, yeah, all over. So I'm holding like it should be, just kind of a bucket list experience. Here's a big tarp, my first ever big tarpon I've ever caught, maybe the only one I'll ever catch. And I'm trying to admire it and look at it and really take in the moment. And I threw up right onto the thing's face. It was.
I can't say it hasn't happened to me. My first ever tuna, I puked as soon as the thing hit the deck, but that's only because I didn't breathe the entire time fighting it, because I was so excited that
You were also
after
like 10.
several trips, I finally hooked a tuna on my own. And the one that sneaks up on you, though, is when you're like, you see that opportunity to really go for it and beat that fish, and then something happens boat side where somebody misses a gaff shot or somebody gets ragdolled by this giant tarpon, and now you're in a fight for longer than you expected to after going all in. That's when I'll sometimes get so gassed that I'm like, I'm puking right now.
That's the most common time for me to pass the rod on a tuna, is when you see color and you're like, here's the end zone, here's the time to make the push, and it takes another run, and you're like, no, somebody else.
But to do it on a media trip with all the cameras rolling and the glory moment is spoiled by...
I wasn't spoiled. A lot of people have landed them perfectly. I feel bad that I blew chunks into this thing's giant, ancient eye, but
it was dubbed the Poon Bootin' Rally. And it won catch of the media trip.
So the media trip, this one was pretty cool. They did you won a prize for the best catch. Everybody voted on, and the pictures of my barely hanging on to this tarpon won me best prize. So I got a little gold chain, got a Quantum Benchmark 4000 that I'm eager to get out there for some bass blues and eventually albies. And yeah, man, I know you've got a lot more tarpon under your belt than I do.
Yeah, I mean, tarpon I've always thought they were super cool fish. First time ever really getting it done was down the Keys with Captain Bo Basso. We were staying at Hawks Cay and got them to like, just over 100 pounds, 120 pounds. I hooked the fish on the Gulf side. I landed it on the Atlantic side, which I thought was super cool.
That's neat.
And, that one was a pretty lengthy fight, but the gear was so light that it's like, it doesn't feel like it's not the same as a tuna fight when you're fighting the gear and it's like, you got this fish that's just putting the screws to you. But I always was obsessed with the gill raker sound when they jump. Like that noise, like you pitch black, and it's like you hear that and you're like, I got a tarpon. Like when we were at Destin, and I stumbled into that jetty, I caught a massive red the day before. I'm like, we got to go there the next morning before the board meeting, and I went with Jesse Simpkins from St. Croix, and I had known there were resident tarpon around, but tarpon were not even on the radar. So it's like, got a couple nice redfish, got some other stuff, and then next thing you know, I saw what looked like a flash from a Volkswagen Bug, like at my feet, and I'm like, what the hell was that? And I lean into it, and I'm like, that ain't a redfish. And then all of a sudden, greyhounding out of the water was, triple-digit tarpon, and it jumped like 6 times before it threw. I had a 4K reel. I wasn't even coming close to slowing it down. But I think they're super cool. I like them. I don't understand how people could get sick of catching tarpon.
No, I think they're. I want to do. I'd like to do it again. I'd like to do that some more. I'd like to do it in the surf.
I'd like to land one from shore.
Yes,
I've landed them from a boat. I have not landed one from shore. I feel like that would be like something to really, it's quite an accomplishment with all the tricks they throw at you.
But it was really cool. The rod, I was blown away by. I mean, that whole combo I was using, if you looked at the total price on it, including the braid, is probably about a $250 to $300 combo. And it beat that fish, and it was ready for it. Hooked two more that day, and jumped two more that day.
That's awesome.
And it was just, man, the rod was a beast. The Quantum Myth rod, the Strive reel was excellent, and man, those guys put on a really good party down there.
I'm bummed I missed it, Jim.
Well, maybe
if it wasn't
next
for
time.
that damn hurricane, we would have went. I would have I probably would have screwed up your cast at that fish.
Yeah, you probably would have thrown right over me.
Or I might have made the right cast the first time, and you would have been left out in left field.
Well, we'll have to see. We can plan a tarpon from Shore Adventure. Gabon is supposed to be the.
I'm not going to Gabon, bro.
Let's go to Gabon.
I'm not. I'm scared of monkeys, bro.
If I have to leave Northeast in June, what a better place to do it than to catch another migration, the tarpon migration north. Big thanks to Quantum for having me down there. Big thanks to Cody Rubner for that. I know you got a little testimonial from him on how his angle of the fight.
I got his perspective.
I'm sure
it was a lot more complimentary than I thought it was going to be, Jim. You did good, Jim.
That's a good fishing guide right there. So.
What's up, everybody? We got Cody Rubner, guide down in Florida at High Roller Guide Service. I get that right, Cody? I fished with you enough.
You did. We're good.
And I heard that there was an episode on your boat. You had been tapped in to run boats for a Quantum Writers event, right?
Yes, sir.
The venerable Jimmy Fee made his way on the High Roller.
When you get called in for a media event, it's going to be a good time. You get to connect with some different people from the industry. You probably get a little peek at some product before it hits the market. There's a lot of pros and cons, but you never really know. It's like your buddies invited you to a fantasy league for football or something, but you don't know who you're going to get drafted, right?
Yep.
So like, am I going to get the first pick? Am I going to get the last pick? And when you attend an event like this, and then you get a lineup that says Jimmy Fee's on your boat for day one, you're like, okay, let's see how this season's going to play out. But here's the interesting part about how this played out. My day two, I look, and I also have Jimmy Fee. So I'm signed up for 2 days of Jimmy Fee here, and I'm like, that's
interesting.
That's an interesting. That's like getting the flip of the turn where you get the last pick in the first and the second round. It's like, do I have something good here? Don't I? I don't know. That's
what's
the
coming
vibe
behind it. I mean, as a guy that knows what it's like to fish with Jimmy, that's got to be like oh sweet. That's I got somebody that can fish on the boat.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot that goes into that. From the attendee side of things, it's like, what kind of captain am I going to get? Am I going to get one that's like dialed, or one that was asked to travel halfway across the state, fish waters? He has no idea about fishing, and I'm learning this with this captain. Or am I going to get somebody that's like you in their home waters that you're like, all right, we're going to crush? There's some manipulation that goes into that when you have ins and you're going on one of these events. You kind of are like, well, how do I put myself in the right hands to be able to make the most of this opportunity? And
Jimmy. I know Jimmy. I mean, it'd be kind of cool if they ended up in my boat. No pressure though when you're doing I know how difficult it is to set the roster up. Yeah, you always want to play. You play your cards. There's always some backdoor deals in the sports game.
Absolutely. So you get Jimmy on the boat. You get him out there. Was it the first morning that did you?
This morning.
Instant success. How'd that go?
First morning, we hop out. We're gonna fish the beach, and we'd had some cold water upwellings. And so when I said cold water, you guys are gonna laugh, especially on the New England guys, because the water's in like the mid 70s, right? And that's cold because it had been in that low 80s before. So we're gonna run the beach and do all the stuff that I love to do, that I know Jimmy had varying degrees of experience with getting. So we're looking for the big jacks, we're looking for tarpon, permit, all sorts of cool stuff like that. We saw a school of jacks or two along the way. They were southbound, so not a good sign to start. The water was cold on the beach, but we threw at them. They're very spooky. So it's like, all right, maybe the beach isn't the vibe. Maybe we'll end up swapping something. But we always put in the miles to make sure we cover and check some different zones for some different things. And maybe 6-7 miles up the beach, we'd covered a little bit of ground, but not too much. And I saw a single fish in tight, just inside the break. It was a flat calm day, which was really nice. But, I'm like, all right, we got tarpon to our 10:30, 11 o'clock, come off pad. We're kind of getting set up. We'd already talked through a couple of the details or whatever. But we hop on the troller and we start to creep in to line up. They're migrating north. We're coming in to line up that shot. And it's it's a good setup because you can tell by tarpon body language what's going on. Like if they're rolling fast, it's kind of like, ooh, we got a dynamic here. Are they slow rolling? These ones were literally just sitting with their backs out of the water. And I think it was early. The water was cold. I think they're just probably sitting high, trying to get a little bit of sun and kind of waiting until they were going to start migrating for the day. So jumping right into the angling experience, we're pitching a live bait to them. And Jimmy's first shot, if these fish were migrating, would have been a good shot. So he was a little bit in front of them, a nice lead. And if they were swimming and actually had some tempo to them, they would have
Yeah.
swam right into it. It was good.
Yeah.
But these fish were basically stalled. They were
Okay.
like barely moving. So first cast, we soak it for, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds. I'm like, all right, let's bring it back in. You're gonna go again. Second cast, he was right on the money. We'll take it and swinging through the school. And I'm like, just let when you're fishing with fly, fishing with plugs, a little bit different, live bait, get it in the zone, get the right cast, lay it in there soft, and let that thing do its thing. You know what I mean? Let it dance and get their attention. So he goes, I'm bit. He felt the kick in the line and he reels down, gets tight to him, the circle hook. And typically you're looking like that stellar moment is like, I'm bit, you reel tight and just drag ripping right away. And you wait about 10 seconds and just cannonball, that crazy chaos that everyone's looking for.
Yeah.
And none of that happened. It's just kind of like, yeah, I'm on. And
What
he's
is
tight
this?
to it. Is leaking a little bit of drag. We always start with the lighter drag and we build up during the
Sure.
fight. And I'm like, it's kind of weird. I'm like, well, go to the back of the boat. I started turning the troller a little bit. But sometimes if you get a school, let's say like 50 fish, 40, 50 fish, there'll be a little pack of like little ones. I see little like 30, 40 pounders
Sure.
mixed in
Fun
with
sized
the
ones.
yeah. So he's like pulling this thing and drag's not really leaking. So I'm like, yeah, maybe got one of the little ones, but they typically jump a lot. But
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe he's just gonna, or maybe, sometimes there's a jack mixed in or something. I'm like, maybe we didn't get the one we want. And so we did just a 360 in place without really anything. The fish are just still rolling behind us and nothing really went down. And I remember looking down because water was really clear and I saw what he was hooked to on the bottom and I was like, good luck, buddy. Have fun. The fact that I saw what I saw with a hook in its face and it hadn't taken off yet is like, oh, this sucks because
Settle in, buddy. It's going to be a long ride.
yeah, and tarpon can be very repeatable, like how the fight goes down and you kind of get it worked through. It can be a little bit of chaos, but the general vibes of getting set to the hook, the jumps. Now you're in this part of the fight, and every once in a while we get a couple per season that's like I call the demon fish.
Mm-hmm.
Gives you none of the jumps you want, gives you none of the screaming jag. It's just like you are gonna feel my weight,
Just
and
going to lean on you.
you're gonna regret putting a hook in me.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Jimmy was hooked to one of those. So I'm also super big, on everything to do with conservation and taking care of the fish
Yep.
that we're fighting. So you know, we build up on our drag quickly. We lock down. We pull the right way. We pull hard, and we want to keep that fight time as low as
Max
possible. So that
pressure,
fish
minimum
gotta,
fight time, get a
yeah,
fish, unbuttoned and back off to doing what it wants to do in the most
exactly.
standing possible. I get that.
Exactly. I always steal a line that Mike Holiday loves to say, it's better to have loved and lost than never loved at all, right? So we're gonna pull hard if we pop one or two along the way. That's
Do it
part of
again.
the game. It's
Yeah.
fun. Let's go do it again. Uh what proceeded to happen from this point on to the following 45 minutes was just like I don't know, man. I have to if I'm gonna give him crap, I also have to give him credit. He never swapped up. When we talked through little things along the way and different tricks we did with the boat maneuvers, stuff like that, he never quit. He was pulling hard and like pulling with good angles. He wasn't doing the sit back and letting it just bend and being like, look it, I'm tight.
Yeah.
He pulled like an MFer, but I mean, dude, this fish went offshore into about like 30 something feet of water, if I remember correctly. They go down to the bottom and they invert themselves and they send all their air to the back of the air bladder. And like you are pulling as hard as you can. We're back in a 250 Yamaha in reverse. And if you got an underwater video of this fish, it would just be like just slowly swimming, just barely trying, like,
Yeah.
oh, get this off me. What the
Yeah.
heck's on me? So, I mean, what
Meanwhile, you're exerting max effort to do something, to
and
move it.
trying every
Yeah.
trick. There's little things you can use, the inertia, the boat, there's all these little tricks you can do just to try to break that because they just get down and they basically use all their ecological advantages that they developed over hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years to breathe air. And I mean, there's nothing you can do other pull hard and pull all these tricks out. So we went through the entirety of the fight. I was worried at different times. I'm like, do I have a defibrillator in the boat? Like, do I
He was
have?
showing his stamina, if you will.
Yes, yes, yes. Different versions of it, but he was definitely showing it at times. But I'll say this: we got it next boat side because it was Quantum Media Day. I put the call in. I'm like, "Yo, Ed and the guys, I know you got a camera boat. We're hooked up to a full size fish. This would be a great shot for some of the new products that I still don't think we can talk about yet. But we're trying some new stuff, right? That people will get to see soon in a couple weeks." And so they're like racing up the beach, going full speed. And then they get up to us and they're like, "Oh, we did not have to rush to get here." I was like, "No, no, 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 no. You got plenty of time with just the rod bent and that's it." So we had a camera boat next to us and we went through all the chaos. We keep getting color, and then this thing would just sound back down on us. And I'll fast forward, I'll briefing it up a little bit, but we get this thing up working on the leader, and this thing just did not want to give its head up, right? So what you just got to get it's pointing up. And the one thing with tarpons, you get on both sides, if you're going to go for the mouth grab, you got to go for it. I mean, take your mitts, stuff them in their gullet, and hold the heck on. There's no, it's not like, "Oh, we'll do another circle." No, we'll do another circle.
Just go there and there with purpose, because you're gonna get ragdolled.
Yep. And we got our mitts on this one. It had been a pretty lengthy fight. So this thing, like, once we get through this initial little whatever, she's kind of settled in. And I looked up and I'm like, "Jimmy, you did it, dude." And
that's when the glory shots come from the camera.
Yes. And I think his face had kind of gone pale, like he had seen a ghost. I think it was kind of like maybe when I don't have kids, but when like a father sees their wife going into labor, it's like a beautiful moment and a magical moment, and also like immediately turning pale and horrifying moments. And I'm like, "Dude, well, come grab on, baby. Like, you earned this. This is whatever." And he came down, he got one hand on it, but I mean, when that stomach hit the gunnel on the side of the bay boat, and then we started to get the dry heaves a little. But I can't give him crap. You got it's like a give and a take, because he was at that point, because he went like nonstop. He saddled up and went the whole way through, and he pulled like a grown man the entire time. But there was definitely like in your head, you get your hands on your tarpon and you're holding it up for the camera boat, and it's this beautiful moment. This one was not that. If there was audio for those photos, it was like,
So was he vomiting while the cameo opportunity happened with the fish? Like, was it, because the way I heard it was he was fighting this fish, and it was the first time he puked fighting a fish, and it was like all the cameras were on him, and he was like throwing up during the end of this fight. And then for all of like the glory shots, it was like, "Hold on, puke, hold on, puke."
So as far as I know, unless he snuck a little something out, I didn't see it during the fight process. I saw it the moment he got his hands. I think it was like when the fight came off. It's almost like you can power through that workout, and you get through your full body workout at the gym or whatever, and then you walk into your car and you're like, "I'm kind of lightheaded, man." That was the experience that I thought we had documented. But like, yeah, I think like everyone wants their hand on their first big tarpon, looking up at the camera, but, "Hi, mom, look at the product I use," right? And his was just, yeah. And the one thing that was funny is he's like, "Man, I'm just so lucky I didn't eat anything that morning." Like, so we didn't have a lot of material, which was good, because like I'm also trying to support the fish, because like sometimes their body goes down. It's not a great photo. So I'm trying to support the fish, and my hand is in the water that's receiving whatever Jimmy's giving back to the ocean. So like I'm happy to share the fish moment. I'm not trying to share his breakfast with him after he's enjoyed it. So we got to that point, and I will say, like, we got shout out to the camera boat, a couple like really cool, that's the shot, that's the magic moment, that's the memory. But they're all
I've seen
there was a couple frames.
I've seen all of those shots, actually, and it was some really good stuff. Pumped for Quantum, pumped for Jimmy getting it done. Had to take some shots at him for not being able to hold his stomach contents from start to finish. But it's like, you just did double sessions. You walked off the field. You earn the spot on the roster, and you just let everything go. And it was nice to know that there were cameras there for it. And it ultimately turned out to be, they were calling it the Poon Bootin Rally, and it was named the catch of the week down at the writers event. So
It was.
not
It
the
was.
best way to represent on the water. The catch of the week part is obviously, but maybe a little better if you did it and held your stomach, if you will. But
He did. He won the little like 2-day vote for the best catch type thing, and we were supposed to document it with iPhones, but it was such a chaotic scene that we didn't get that. But he did win and get a round of applause while there was a photo on a big TV at the fish camp of him just dead both sides. And his prize was they gave him a plastic gold chain that had a
throw that
tarpon
in the we'll throw that in the video when we edit this together. This will be an intro for the podcast. We'll talk about that trip that
Love it.
Jimmy made down there and got to fish with you a few days. Dude, thank you so much for the rundown. Thanks for what you do on the conservation side of things. Really appreciate you being a steward of that with the Captains for Clean Water and fighting on Capitol Hill for us with everything that's going down in your backyard. So keep doing
our best, dude. Of course. But in classic guide fashion, you know what I got to go do right now? I got to hang up and change a tire on my trailer.
How do people get in touch with you if they want to fish with you?
HighRollerGuideService.com is the website if you want to check out more. And then I use Instagram the most for social media. Both of them have my phone number on them, and you can just text or call. I'm a call or text away.
Highly recommend Cody. He's an awesome guide. He works super hard, and you have a blast, and you learn a bunch, and you catch fish with Cody. Well, we've been lucky enough to fish plenty of times down in Stewart together.
Do your workout plans before you come, and don't eat breakfast if you're worried about a Jimmy experience. So depending on the season.
I appreciate
you, man.
All right, good to see you, buddy.
Back when I spent my summers scooping minnows and selling crab traps from behind a tackle shop counter, Quantum was our best-selling saltwater reels. Since breaking back onto the saltwater scene in 2024, Quantum has been reclaiming that spot with the new Benchmark and Strive spinning reels. So far this year, I've been kicking around the backwaters, casting jigs to weakfish, fluke, and schoolies with my Benchmark 2500. In just a couple months, I can't wait to pit its CFX 200 carbon fiber extreme drag system against Albies and Bonito. My kids, and let's face it, me too, have been loving fishing the Strive 3000 combos around the docks for scup, sea bass, and anything else that's going to eat a piece of freezer-burnt squid. For $150, these are reliable setups we'll have season after season for when they're ready to graduate from the scup and sea bass to the stripers and blues. The Benchmark 6000 that I've been using in the surf since last summer is still performing like new thanks to the Seal Lock 6 protection that prevents water, sand, and salt from getting into the body and spool of the reel. And Quantum's not just coming back with reels. They also have the Myth lineup of saltwater rods. I recently had a chance to fish these in Florida, pitching live baits to tarpon and snook and throwing poppers at jacks. These rods blend strength and sensitivity and have all the makings of a great rod for big striped bass. To learn more about Quantum saltwater reels and rods, visit quantumfishing.com. Quantum, tested beyond limits.
All right, I'm Anthony DeCicci. It's another installment of the On the Water podcast, and today I have Chris Donnellan, who has had quite the journey, and I'll turn it over to him. What's the proper what's the proper way to address you with your status and your military background?
I am active guard reserve, so I'm in the National Guard in Rhode Island, 19th Group Special Forces.
Nice.
So I act as assistant day-to-day operations non-commissioned officer in my office, and my specialty is an 18 Echo Special Forces Communication Sergeant.
All right, cool. I'm not going to remember much of that, but I felt remiss to not, kind of bring that up, because the reason that we got connected was obviously you have a passion for fishing, and you've taken that passion in partnership with Fishing for the Mission 22, which is how I got introduced to, how you got on my radar of like somebody that'd be really cool to sit down and talk with. And
I hope so.
Essentially, that remains to be seen. But essentially, that organization is really making big strides with supporting our veterans and using fishing to get them on the water to help them with their PTSD. Mm-hmm. And you know more about it than I do, so I'll kind of let you introduce kind of what that group does, your experience with it, and how you got involved.
My experience with it, I was walking through Mako's Bait and Tackle over in Buzzards Bay one day. I saw a flyer for their Black Sea Bass tournament. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I didn't even know there were any veteran charities nearby. Usually I deal with like the national kind of guys.
Sure.
The bigger ones. And the more focused ones, you'll have like, oh, there's only Navy SEAL charities, only Green Beret charities. He was kind of broader, and I invited him over to my house for dinner.
Yeah.
We got to talking, and he's like, hey, well, if you ever want to do stuff with us, give me a holler. And it wasn't 2 fortuitous at the time because I headed out the door for like a year.
Yeah.
Overseas, and I think I was in Afghanistan at the time, and I came back, and I think I was buying a boat, and I just reconnected, and he's like, hey, would you like to get your captain's license? And I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah. So here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you run trips or
Not yet.
not yet?
No.
You're new in that process?
So a bunch of years ago, I went through New England Maritime, and I went to get the master's, and I ended up, the way my deployments were lining up, I submitted my paperwork. They required some more information. So like my application timed out, my credentialing timed out. So I had to revisit it when I got back, and I just got my credentials like 3 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Or 2 weeks ago, yeah.
Congratulations,
Thank
Captain.
you. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, Fishing for the Mission 22. Give us a little background on what their purpose is, what their mission, is in the grand scheme of things.
So I don't propose to put out their flagship statements or anything like that. To the best of my knowledge and my experience is that they've kind of opened up dialogue about PTSD, and they're doing it through a very camaraderie based kind of way. Harold will have dudes come in for charters, and it's guys that would otherwise be isolated in their life and with their thoughts and their family and from the prior aspects of war or whatever.
Yeah.
And they end up on the boat with like 5 other SF guys or 5 other whoever.
Yep.
And
5 other veterans.
Yeah. And they just talk through
what they're going through.
Not necessarily that. It's just kind of like being with the boys again.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people understand it unless you've really been to combat. And not to say that it's unable to be understood.
Sure.
It's just easier to be with the boys again. That sort of thing.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and it's tough because that makes it sound like it's like a boys' club, and it's not.
It's common ground.
Yeah,
it's common ground. It's like shared experiences. Everyone has their own experience, but it's like unless you've experienced something at that magnitude that you're dealing with the after effects from, you kind of can explain it to people, but in the back of your mind they don't understand. Yeah, I get that. That makes perfect sense. So let's jump all the way back to kind of how what are your first memories, your earliest memories fishing? What gave you that bug?
I really don't want to be the guy, but it's stripers in Cape Cod. My dad had a house on East Sandwich Beach, and I remember going to like Benny's and getting like the one-eye Willie deal, like a deadly,
Benny's is
like a deadly dick.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So it's just
exactly.
like it was like a hammered flat nail with a hook on the end of it.
Yeah.
And you toss it on a crap rod, and just crushing stripers off the jetties on East Sandwich Beach and Scusset, that kind of area, and that was the bug when I was a kid.
Yeah,
and obviously I went into the military, so like I have these fond memories to look back on when I'm in the Middle East of just like clear water, windy, stripers everywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that guy because striper fishing has just like exploded in the past bunch of years. So I wish I had a better root story, but I don't.
Yeah, hey, I mean, stripers have drawn a lot of people into the sport. What was that first experience like? Paint that picture of the the first one you hooked and how that went, and it was like, wow, this is what I want to be doing.
I think it was more my father at the time. He's still my father. My father, he gave me and my brother those 2 lures, and I vividly remember these 2 lures. I think I might even still have one. And he's like, just go make yourself busy for like
get out of my hair,
all day.
dude.
Like I think he was putting a new roof on our beach cottage at the time, and he was like, get the hell out of my hair, like beat it.
Yeah.
And me and my brother just went to the end of the there's like rock jetties on East Sandwich Beach. And we're just murdering it. And I couldn't believe it. I'd never caught stripers before. I couldn't believe the fight. I think I might have been 9.
Yeah.
My brother was like 7, and
Very
we're just on
cool.
the rocks down there.
And you're catching right away.
Oh yeah, everything you put in the water, you could have put a hot dog in the water.
Yeah,
and
right
it
place,
would-
right time.
Yeah.
That'll get you hooked for a long
Yeah,
time.
I mean,
Yeah.
you have all this behind, like everybody's like, oh, I swear by this. And
Yeah.
like, no, if they're hungry, they're
Yeah.
gonna eat. They'll eat a car battery.
So when you went back and had that experience, it was like, how did it evolve over time? Like obviously, it got disrupted with entering the military and whatnot. But like, what was that fishing journey like? How did it grow from there?
Oh, I'm always trying to get that high back,
Yeah.
like an addict.
Yeah.
You the first high, those first like big bubbly like tail slapping days when you're like, good God, like all I want to do is fish every day for the rest of my life, and then you go out and get skunked, and it's like
I can relate.
the worst disease to have in the world.
Yeah, the tug is the drug, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
You're chasing that high.
yeah, and the more you do it, like, it's never enough.
No.
It only makes like the void that that itch that you have to scratch larger and larger and more, unable to be fulfilled.
Well, so that's this year. This year is shaping up for me. So I got a couple trips this summer that are military related.
Yeah.
Like one's in like 7 days. And it's right as I'm finishing my neighbor's son's boat. He wants to go tuna fishing all the time. Like he's a big tuna fisher out of Duxbury.
Yeah.
And he's like, all I want to do is fish tuna. And I'm like, all I want to do is fish tuna. But unfortunately, I have like a daytime job.
Yeah.
And it's going to take me to like Yuma, Arizona for 3 weeks. And I can't do it. He's like, you coming June 1st? I'm like, no, I mean,
Yeah.
no,
Can't
I'm
make
not.
it.
Like, so
Life
like
gets
here
in
I
the
am
way.
trying to recreate this high on a daily basis to go fishing, and
Work's
like,
getting in the way.
Well, work. My wife never gets in my way, nor do my children.
Yeah.
But they definitely keep me away from the water.
Do your kids fish? I know they're young. Have you started them
there's-
fishing yet?
I mean, as much as a little girl fishes on the boat, like
Sure.
like she caught a scup and she thought it was the greatest thing in the world, and then she touched it and then
Yeah.
she flipped out and
Yeah.
lost her mind.
That sounds like my wife.
Yeah.
No, that can be pretty fulfilling too. Once they start, as they get older, they get into it. So your daily job now are you in the training side of things?
So my daily job is twofold. I'm in the operations cell, so we handle the training. I don't know how to all the parameters that go into training for the rest of my unit.
Yeah.
I handle the day to day, and then I'm also a member of the unit. So I'm on a specialty team. We do free fall, so we train a lot jumping.
I've heard you do some crazy stuff. So like, give us kind of the behind the scenes as much as you're able to on like, some of the craziest like training stuff that our military personnel goes through.
So when it comes to the Green Berets, all the training that you generally see is going to be like the sexier aspect of it. So
Yeah.
like jumping, diving, shooting, explosions, everything.
Yeah.
That's generally like the smallest portion of my job. It's like the 1% of
Kind of like fishing is for my job.
Yeah. Here you are in the you're in the studio. Everything's fishing, but you're not doing any fishing.
No.
Yeah. So like the jumping, the scuba diving, that's only the infiltration portion of my job. And nowadays, there's no surreptitious infill platforms really anymore. So everybody, if the United States is going to a foreign country, everybody knows it already. Sure. Because it's on every news station and everything. So we train for it, but we don't really do it.
Yeah.
Nobody really does. I mean, but everybody's always training doing it. So we're always jumping, always diving, always free fall and static line jumping.
And like that stuff doesn't come into play as much in like your military career, or does it depend on kind of where you end up?
So the requirements to stay current in that sort of thing make it so it's like a necessary part of my day-to-day life. But if you ask my commander, it'd be like the less important portion of my like military decision making and planning and everything is much more important to like our missions and than free fall jumping out of planes all the
It's
time.
something you got to know how to do if you know the planning and stuff calls for it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really
it doesn't.
It isn't needed as much as the bigger game plan and all that stuff.
Yeah, the bigger picture.
So how does your military background kind of compute to making you approach fishing in a similar way? Has it made an impact on that side of things?
I'd say there's a little a more detailed analysis and focus, but your standard run-of-the-mill guy that like fishes like a charter captain or something like that, they do the same thing. They just don't realize that they're doing like military style planning when they're going after something or changing techniques or doing something like, oh, well, I'm going to put this out on a balloon and I'm going to put this on a kite. I'm going to do this. And they don't know that like the military weigh the options the same way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like just falling in with the same guys.
Yeah.
On a daily basis.
That makes perfect sense. So, your home turf, as far as fishing goes now, where would you consider that? And what are those experiences been like?
Say that again.
Where do you kind of do your most fishing when you get out?
Buzzards Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah, down Buzzards Bay. I try to make it up to the Cape. I mean, the canal is such a pain.
Yeah, it is.
Sometimes
it can
to
be.
like rip through. And like the speed limits everywhere, and there's 9 different cops in the canal at any given time that are going to tell you to slow down if you're going 11 knots or something like that. So, which doesn't bother me. They're doing their job, but it's just I would rather not spend 2 hours driving through the canal
to get to the other side. It is kind of a limiting thing that you have to build into the overall plan. I've been virtually living in AFCO's deckhand fishing shorts and pants since they came out. I have the pants on right now. The stretch woven blend of nylon and spandex makes them super comfortable while providing UPF 50 sun protection. The combination of a sturdy elastic waistband with belt loops and a zippered fly makes for a look suitable for the office, the boat, or the bar. And the reinforced plier pocket and stain-resistant, water-resistant coating help keeps tools in reach while water and fish blood bead right off to keep them looking great. Family owned and operated for over 65 years, AFCO represents unparalleled quality, performance, and reliability when it counts. AFCO is not only proven to perform on the water, but are true leaders of conservation. Their pledge to protect and conserve has 10% of every AFCO purchase going directly to supporting conservation initiatives that make a difference. Visit AFCO.com today and pick yourself up a pair of deckhand shorts and pants. You'll thank me later.
Yeah, and then there's the flip side of the coin. You're like, oh, well, there's a bunch of traffic on Cape right now. Like, so my boat doesn't trailer, but I could jump in with him by buddy. We could trailer up or just rip through the canal. I don't know. I'd say day to day, but I'd love to fish more up towards Stellwagen.
Yeah.
In my boat, but I'm probably going to do my boat a little later on in the season.
Sure.
That's sort of when the tuna is getting a little heavier.
You gonna jump into the tuna?
I really want to.
Yeah, you haven't done that. Have you been tuna fishing yet?
Yeah. A couple times. I get a buddy out of Duxbury. Runs a boat called the Shocker. It's a down east.
Yeah.
And he just crushes it.
Yeah.
And I would like to be there.
Mostly
someday.
giant fishing?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he takes the occasional charter out and goes for anything a little less.
Sure.
He doesn't really chase like footballs or anything, but the recreational size, whatever that is, I don't know what the number is off the top of my head. But I would like to be there at the end of the year this year. Unfortunately, the military is just really getting in the way of my hobbies.
Yeah, I could see how that would happen. Have you checked that box yet with tuna?
Yeah.
What was the first tuna you hooked or you saw hooked?
So the first one I hooked, it was with a couple of buddies of mine that are in my unit, and it was wild.
Yeah.
That's like that drug again. It's because it's a bigger, better drug. It's like I went from meth to bath salts or something. Like it's a hardcore drug.
Yeah. What
bigger reels, bigger sounds, bigger people, bigger adrenaline.
What was that? What was like? Take us through that trip. How did it unfold?
So out of Duxbury, on the Shocker, real nice boat. I think he's got a 36, might be a 42, something like that. Big old Cummins in it, screamed out to Stellwagen, the southwest corner, and just dropped lines, and then it was like 10 solid hours of nothing.
Sounds like tuna fishing.
Yeah, this is exactly what it was. And again, like changing everything. Not that nothing happened.
Yeah.
Like we caught some stripers or whatever.
Yeah,
and I was
yeah.
like, this is boring. I hate stripers.
Yeah.
I love striper fishing.
I'm here
I
for
hate-
tuna fish.
Yeah, exactly. I came here for a targeted species,
Yeah.
and I want to go home with it. And then at the end of the afternoon, the Coast Guard was out there, and they were boarding boats.
Yeah.
And so my wife was with me, two of my friends, and my neighbor's son, who was mating the boat at the time. And my wife was like, "Oh, the Coast Guard's headed this way." And there's a million boats out there.
Yeah, sure.
At
They,
the
they
time.
go boat to boat to boat to boat when they're just. I mean, they're checking everybody to make sure they have the stuff that they should have for their own safety.
Yeah, sure. And so my wife is like, Coast Guard's coming this way, and this kid Anthony's like, no, they're not coming to board us. Like, and she's like, no, they're coming. They're like 30 feet away, and he's like, I don't believe you. It turns his head, and there's this Coast Guard small boat coming like right for us, and they board, and so they ask us all. They're like, we need to identify everybody, and everybody hands their like military ID cards, and they're like senior NCOs and like a major on the boat at the time. And they're like, oh, sorry, sir. And so as they're like going through the fire extinguishers or whatever they're doing, like one of the reels rips, and it like this kid Anthony, the young kid, jumped over a cooler, like pushed this poor Coast Guard kid out of the way. And he's like, get out of the way, and just jumped on the reel and started reeling. It was great. It was hilarious. And they just sat off to the side on the gunnel, because I guess they.
I mean, that's excitement for them on their day too.
Oh yeah, they said they'd never seen anything like it, but they said they're like, we can't get in the way of this. This is like your livelihood.
Yeah.
So they just sat on the gunnel quietly until we landed the fish.
That's awesome.
It was a recreational size.
Yeah.
So we only it
Wasn't
was
that
like
long.
a 45-minute fight.
Yeah.
But it was hilarious.
That's pretty. That would be when the fish bites. I could see
Of course.
that, right?
Yeah.
They have a knack. Like that has a knack for going off at the most inconvenient time, and then it just adds another wrench into the
You're
equation.
like using the head.
Yeah, exactly. Or you're asleep, or or everyone's asleep, and you're the one awake, and you know the least out of the whole group,
Yeah.
and it's like, somebody should be doing something, but I'm really not sure what right now.
Yeah, I have no idea. Do I just flip that bail all the way forward, flip that switch?
You guys had, yeah, exactly. Just, and it's
go to
just
full and
backwash.
it,
Yeah,
yeah, it
exactly.
snaps.
Oh, yeah. That's too funny.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty eventful boarding for the U.S. Coast Guard. They must have got a kick out of that.
Yeah, I'm sure they tell this story.
Yeah.
Probably a little different.
Yeah, we were just trying to get to the next one, and then these jerks got a bite, and we were 45 minutes. We were just relegated to the gunnel.
Yep, sitting on the gunnel like a punished child.
So, tuna fishing is what you want to kind of get into next. What do you run for a boat?
So I have an extremely 1 year older than myself, 1985 Rampage 31.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Classic hull.
Yeah, the Slam Page, I guess, is what.
Some of them ride well. Some of them are dubbed the Slam Page for appropriate reasons.
Yeah, I fell in love with the hull a bunch of years ago. So I live right next to a safe harbor in Onset, and there was this dude that just left one to.
Just abandoned it.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know the exact circumstances, and I just kept offering to buy it.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I'll take it off your hands. Like I'm like
Sure.
telling the management at the boatyard, I'm like, tell him I'll offer him like whatever for that boat. And the guy ended up like not taking my offer. And I'm like, why not? Like
You're not even using it.
yeah, it sat there for like 7 years, and then they just cut it up eventually. But I was in Africa, and I was cruising Craigslist one night for boats, and this is like probably 2021, something like that. And I came across this one in Falmouth, Rampage 31, and I just messaged the guy, and I'm like, hey, I'd like to buy your boat. And the guy's like, okay, cool. You want to come by and see it? And I was like, no, I'm in Africa. I can't. I'm just going to send you money. And he's like, oh, sure, man. Yeah, like, okay.
Yeah. You're
Next
the
you're going to tell me
Saudi
you're the
prince that
the
is-
deposed
that
son
needs
of
money.
us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to send you a check for $100,000, and you're going to send me back 50, whatever.
Yeah.
I turned out he's a funny guy. The way he tells that story is a little different too. He's like, yeah, this guy just like Venmo'd me from Africa. I think I might have been in Mogadishu at the time, and he's like, yeah, Venmo went through, man. Like, he's like, it's actually money, and I'm like, I know. Like, I live in Buzzards Bay. I'll be back there in a few months to get it. Can you just keep it in your yard? And he's like, yeah, no problem. And he was down in Falmouth, so I showed up. I had a friend of mine survey it.
Yeah.
To slightly survey it. Guy out of Sandwich went down and took a look at it, and he's like, it's a lot of work. But
Yeah.
I was like, I have
Good
nothing better
bones.
to do. Yeah, it was solid bones. Engines are still running.
Nice.
Yeah, the really old, clunky Volvos.
Yeah.
It's like a bag of hammers, but they're great. But the electrical was in like disarray, and so it just took a lot of TLC.
Yeah, got to work all the gremlins out. It takes
Yep.
some time, but I mean, a lot of the old boats, they come back roaring, man.
Yeah.
They got good, good structural integrity, and the hull is a good hull. A lot of times, that's the only way to get what you want is to kind of rebuild and.
Yeah, because
An old dog.
I can't afford a regulator.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's absurd.
it's got-
It's the cost of my house.
It's gotten pretty crazy over the years. The pandemic didn't help that too much.
No.
So you're midway through this project, and you're kind of targeting towards the middle to end of the season to try to get on some tuna.
So boat went in the water the second year I had it, so 23, and then 24 we had a kid in the middle of the summer. So
That'll throw a wrench into the Volvo.
well, yeah, or my wife would throw a wrench at my head
Yeah.
if I ever
Absolutely.
suggested going out and putting the boat in the water. So right now it's on the hard, but it's going in after I get back from this next work trip, June 21st ish. I'll stick it in.
Yeah.
And it's going over at Zecco's.
Nice.
Up the Wareham River. Yeah.
Nice. So how are you going to go about getting it tuna fishing down south? Do you have a game plan? You see yourself trolling more, or do you want to do the jig and pop stuff?
I would do
doable?
the live line
Yeah.
stuff, the mackerel, the deep.
Yeah, I mean, if you've experienced that, the Stellwagen area, it works just the same out here. And
Yeah, down towards the vineyard.
we've had a lot of regular bites that have come up kind of annually, like right behind the vineyard, the Claw, and some of those places where, live line in early in the morning, that gray light's going to get you a bite. So
Yeah, I have no problem going towards Block Island.
Yeah.
Too. I work down in Newport,
those waters pretty
middle
low.
of town. Yeah. We have a work boat that it's just a rib on steroids that
Yeah.
we use down there, and it's ridiculously fast. And so we're always back and forth from Block Island and doing small boat stuff out there.
Block Island's a cool place.
Yeah, it's
Have you ever striper fished out there?
no, I haven't.
You gotta-
Yeah, that rip is pretty. It shaped the island.
It's incredible. I mean, some of the most insane, actually to this day, the most insane fishing I've ever experienced striper wise has been right there in the hallowed grounds off of Block Island. I think our top 5 went like 2 over 50, a 49 pounder, a couple 48 pounders,
wild.
and it was like it showed out for us that day. Like there was a fresh influx of bunker that came rolling over Southwest Ledge, and it just like lit the dynamite, and it went
Yeah.
berserk. It looked like the city dump out there. It was 40, 50-pound fish like rolling on the surface. You could catch them however you wanted, but we were fishing live eels. I was fishing like a 10-inch soft plastic, like eel imitation on a jig head, and that bite's really addicting. And then every now and again, we'll just pick up like a dock and catch them on top water as well. And it was pretty wild, dude. I got another trip booked. It was with Captain Joe DiOrio. He's a big charter captain out of Connecticut that fishes the block a lot. And I think it was July 3rd.
Is that New London or something?
Yeah, yep. Right out of there, you scoot across, and you're fishing. You get in there just as the sun's starting to come up. I think we left at like 2:30 or 3 or something like that. But it was July 3rd, and I was concerned with like, oh man, how much is it gonna suck to get back on Cape Cod time for like the 4th of July
traffic?
stuff, traffic coming back.
Yeah.
'Cause going there at that
Should just
hour,
taken a boat.
Yeah, at that hour in the morning, it's not a problem. But having to fight it coming back was brutal, and the fishing was so incredible. It was. I don't even think we were home yet, and I'm like, hey, lock me in for next year, same time, same date. I don't even care. It was wild, and I was
Take
with
my
the two
money.
people that are alive that I've done the most striper fishing with my whole life. So
Yeah.
it was like, we all in for this next year, and they were all like,
Yeah.
It was wild. So if you ever have a chance to fish the block, do that. I mean, coming out of where you are, that's
Middletown
like.
or Third Beach.
Yeah, I
Newport.
mean, even coming from down here, like you can make that trek in a Rampage, no problem.
Well, we would probably try to take the Army boat,
You can do that too.
do some small boat work out there, and
Yeah, you got to do boat work.
yep,
Training.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, like water skiing on the back of a Navy SEAL boat or something.
Harold had when he was telling me about you, he was like, what, like, why haven't you gotten out of the military? And he's like, you got to ask him this. He's like, he's like, because they pay me to go skydiving and diving and do all that kind of crazy trait and stuff.
Uh-huh.
What is the most thrilling part of that training regiment, preparing for stuff that you'll probably, very seldom use in your military career? That's like the craziest rush.
So night.
I want to hear you experiencing it for the first time, being like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm about to do this. And what was going through your head and getting into it for the first time, whatever that thing is.
So in special forces, there are specialty teams. There's
Yep.
a dive team and a free fall team. So the SEALs, most of them are dive and free fall. Most combat controllers in the Air Force are dive and free fall. But Green Berets, they rarely get both specialties. And I started out as a diver, and it took me like 16 years to get to free fall school. And so I only went to free fall school like last year. So I've only been skydiving for about a year.
Yeah.
I've been jumping since 2006. That's
What's
static.
the difference?
So static line jumping is, it's a much lower jump. It's lower. The speed is about the same of the aircraft, and the parachute is different. So it's there's versions thereof these parachutes, but it's a round chute. It's not really steerable, and the parachute is hooked to a static line that's hooked to a cable inside the aircraft. And as you jump out of the aircraft, the parachute's pulled out of your pack tray, out of your backpack, and it inflates
Yeah.
on your own. Whereas free fall jumping, you jump out, you assume like an arched body position, you stabilize yourself, and you fly through the air for a little while. You check your altitude, you wave off, and you pull your own parachute out. And that's the civilian skydiving parachutes. So I've been jumping static line since 2006. I only went to free fall last year, and it was like a backdoor handed deal that I got to go, because usually this late in your career you don't really get to go to that kind of stuff. And so the first day of jumping, so you do like a ground week the first week at free fall, and you're in the wind tunnel, the vertical wind tunnel, and you're like learning how to stabilize yourself in the air, because if you start to tumble or something, it's not all over, but it's
hard to recover from, I bet.
It's hard to recover. I mean, there's a device on your reserve parachute that will fire your parachute automatically for you
Sure.
if you're unconscious or something along
Yeah.
those lines. But so you're in the wind tunnel, and then you jump on like the 4th or 5th day
Yeah.
for the first time, and you just step up to the tailgate on it. So it looks like a big cargo plane, but it's a really smaller version. It's called a C-27.
Okay.
You just walk out to the tailgate. You have an instructor. He's standing facing you, and you're just toes on the tailgate looking straight down at like whatever, 12,000 feet or something. And that's the first butterflies I've had in like 20 years ever. You look straight down and you just dive out like you're diving into the water. And
There's no water for a long time.
no water at all for a long time, and they call it riding the slide.
Yeah.
So you dive head first, feet behind you, and your feet come flying up over your head, and you ride this slide down, and you eventually potato chip down into an arched position, and you just sit there. And there's some I guess you could call them diagnostics kind of things that they have you do. Your instructor, because he's like nose to nose with you in the air. He's flying like right there. Unbelievable skydivers.
That's insane.
They just know how to fly their body through the air, and he's just there and he's giving you hand signals on stuff to do. He's like, oh, just do me a favor, practice touch where your parachute is, or do like a turn.
Now, do you have comms? It's all hand signals
So
and mouthing?
the further you get into your career, the more there's some communications.
Sure. With the saltwater season in full swing, one of the best ways to get in on the action is by reserving your spot at the rail aboard one of the best headboats in the business, the Helen H fleet. They truly offer world-class fishing that begins in early April, with the starfish drifting over the winter flounder grounds in Cape Cod Bay. Come summer, the Helen H fleet starts running past Nantucket to the best fluke fishing grounds in the Northeast. If catching a doormat fluke is on your bucket list, these trips offer your best chance at hooking a double-digit flatfish. Some of the best fluke fishing I've witnessed was aboard the Helen H, but it was a trip that I had to bail on that still haunts me. One of my best friends, my replacement, caught a 14-pound fluke right under Jimmy's nose, which was a nice consolation, but I'd rather have been the one doing the catching myself. If you want to fish the canyons, a great way to experience it is on a headboat. Whether it's your first time or one of the few times each season you get to the edge, the Helen H begins running trips offshore in late summer. 2 to 3 day trips take you out for tuna, mahi, and swordfish at the edge of the continental shelf. I personally hooked and promptly lost my first ever swordfish aboard the Helen H on a canyon trip a couple seasons back. Can't wait to get back at the reel this fall looking to settle that score. New for 2025, anglers can find more rail space for Nantucket fluke fishing all summer by booking the 10-hour limited open boat trips aboard the Angler. Or, come fall, you can hop aboard their jumbo tog trips limited to 25 anglers running October through November. No matter the time of year, there's plenty of great fishing options with the Helen H fleet, but the boats fill up fast. So head over to visit helenh.com to book your trip today. That's helen-h.com.
When you're ripping through the air at like a couple, like
you couldn't hear
150,
anything.
140 miles an hour, you couldn't hear anything anyways. Certainly couldn't. It wouldn't come over the radio.
Yeah.
Like we talk about like interference.
feedback
to
would be
this.
ridiculous.
It's silly.
Yeah.
But once your canopy opens, there's communications.
Gotcha.
But that's a little more getting into the advanced type of infill stuff. So those were my first butterflies doing that, and then so the craziest happened like a week and a half later. So you progress very quickly in military free fall. In the civilian free fall world, they're like, oh, you want to wait for 100 jumps until you put like a GoPro on your helmet because you don't know how it's going to happen. Like, you don't know how it's going to affect you flying. Week 2, you're flying with like a rucksack between your legs and a rifle.
Yeah.
And then I think it's like the 3rd week, you start jumping nights with a full oxygen mask and an oxygen bottle, a rifle, and a rucksack. And so the craziest thing, I think, I mean, other guys will probably hear this and be like, it's nighttime. So nighttime combat equipment, full wall locker, meaning oxygen mask, rifle, everything, and just night jumps. Those are bonkers to me because you're going out with 10 other guys.
Yeah.
And you only have these little tiny like pin light strobes and everything to like a green and a red.
To identify
Yep, you
like,
wear
where there's other people.
You wear a red on your front because your parachute drives forward, and you wear greens on your back. So if you see a red, you turn away from that guy because you don't want to crash into each other in the middle of the middle of the sky. And we jump night vision, but I mean things do happen. It rides up or gets out of your eyes, and you don't necessarily see it. And it's night jumps are pretty wild.
That's
It's
intense.
jumping into it's complete darkness.
Did now obviously you didn't start special forces. You got into the military and then like you had some crazy stuff happen early on, was it? Or early 2000s?
Yeah, so I joined delayed entry program 03. Shipped to basic training in 04 August, and I was in Iraq by December. So I went in as a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout with 3rd Infantry Division. It's a big, just massive. It's like a cow farm of people. There's like 30,000 soldiers. I don't even know how many. That's That's
A
probably
lot.
an accurate number. And it was Third ID was the vanguard unit that drove tanks from Kuwait to Baghdad in the beginning of the invasion of Iraq.
Yep.
And I wasn't on the actual run straight up to Baghdad, but I was there like 6 months after, just because I was too young.
Sure.
I tried to get there.
You just started.
Yeah. And that deployment was long, hot, stupid. I just hated it. I hated every minute of being in the military. Then I was like, there has to be a better life somewhere. And there really isn't a way to get out of those units
Yeah.
unless you volunteer for something like Special Forces. You could try to go be like a drill sergeant or a recruiter, but that's more of a selection-based stuff based on like time. But the only way to on your terms leave is to go to like Special Forces.
Yeah.
So I had to get out of there. It was so horrible. I got wounded on that trip. It was just, in the tactics and techniques we were using were just silly.
Yeah. The when you get wounded on a trip like that, you just jump back in the fold, or like how does that shake out?
So it depends on the extent of the wound.
Yeah.
Obviously, you lose a leg, they're gonna give you
course.
some time off. And if you want to come back in, I know guys that have come back from losing legs to be full active duty. It's like a fit for duty kind of assessment. My wounds at the time were not extensive enough to keep me out of the combat, so I stayed. They put me on bed rest for like 2 days, and then I was back out on missions like 2-3 days later, something like that. It was just shrapnel. It was from a roadside bomb at the time, but some of it, I thought it was.
Oh, just shrapnel, just like just let me just get that.
I mean,
get rid of that.
Yeah, it wasn't like a sniper round or anything like that. I mean, well, so I'd say just shrapnel. I mean, like,
But that incident, like, you literally, prevented loss of life in that.
There was, it was.
In that just shrapnel episode.
Well, I would equate it to, I don't know, like one of the main streets out here.
Yeah.
A very
Rudimentary.
commerce-heavy street. There was just in the middle of the street. There was a bit of a median, and it was like a sandbag or a potato bag. It was filled with these 3 shells, 155 shells. They're about. The shell itself is like this big.
Yeah.
And it's just HE. It's like high explosive, and it's just a ton of it. And there were a bunch of kids around, and I wasn't the only person on the ground
that noticed it.
Well, I was the only person that got wounded, but no, we were told about it.
Yeah.
By a local. They just saw an American patrol coming by, and they're like, "Hey, do us a favor, get rid of this, because we don't want this bunch of artillery shells in the middle of the road to start rocking our neighborhood.
Yeah.
So get rid of it." They don't like Al Qaeda or whoever
Sure.
as much as we don't.
Yeah.
And what happened was we were employing like a radio controlled little car
Yeah.
that had cameras on it.
Sure.
Not anything as sophisticated as like an EOD unit would have. It was like a program from the military. They like issued it to us, and they're like, "Here, this is what'll get you by until EOD shows up." And we were just trying to take a look at it, and when we were driving it up to it, it just went off, and I was dismounted on the side, and I took some in my hand and in my neck, but yeah, it's just shrapnel because, and the reason I say that is because I knew a lot of guys that got way worse than some shrapnel. Like, just the bombs at the time in Iraq then were just so big. They're unheard, like thousands of pounds of explosives just shredding tanks, and it was big time warfare back in the beginning of the war. It was pretty rough.
So how does fishing, how therapeutic is fishing for, the how crazy of a situation that you're in 24/7 when you're deployed? Like, how does that help veterans that have, been deployed, been in combat? Like, what is that experience like that makes that a kind of a special?
I don't know how to answer that, because fishing is violently frustrating. It's horrible. It's ups and downs. It's terrible.
That's kind of how I know fishing.
Yeah, it's
But
super
I hear about it all the time with like all the different programs that are out there.
But the ups are the highs are so high and the lows are so low. I guess you can go home after getting skunked on a fishing trip, and not
wasn't the weather nice?
not replay it all day in your mind.
Yeah.
About having such a day, but and then the highs are high.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, it gets your mind off of the stuff that occupies your mind, because
for sure
you're into fishing like that.
Yeah, and you're just getting pissed because it's
a different level.
They're not biting this one.
Yeah.
They're biting that one.
Yeah.
Because they're not hungry. They're only hungry for green stuff or blue stuff. Yeah. By the way, Liam and I talked about this.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
You're pointing at. I don't even know what.
All of them. No, they're real hooks.
Yeah.
You're gonna hurt somebody.
We figured you could handle it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just a hook wound, dude.
Yeah.
Suck it up.
Yeah, it wouldn't be my first.
So the rest of the season, get your boat in the water. Mm-hmm. What are you most looking forward to that the Northeast season has in store for you personally, fishing wise?
I think I'm gonna go with the most popular stuff: the black sea bass, the stripers, everything. I'm gonna try to make my clunky old diesels reliable enough to brave the canal and not crap out and end up on the rocks.
Yeah.
And have to call a towboat and head up to Stellwagen or something like that, or head south, or head to the Pass Cuttyhunk and go to the vineyard or something like that. But and then my kids are young, so I need to get them
sea bassing and scup with the kids. Yep. That'll get them hooked easy.
I need them to get the bug.
Yeah. It's keep it simple. Keep it super simple with them. Baited hooks, high-low rig. Mm-hmm. Scup fishing, I think that's constant action, and they'll be the one that probably hooks the 45-inch striper that,
like a record breaker.
Yeah, they'll be the one that. But that's with kids from experience. I got my kids fishing early. I had them playing with just a spinning reel and stuff, real young, to get used to it, and then same thing with conventional. And the kid fishing stuff can be super frustrating. And it's got to be done on their terms, which is super frustrating, because you'll be in the best fishing situation, and your kid will be not in fishing mode and want nothing to do with it, and throw an absolute fit. And you have to kind of ride through that to get to the, hey, Daddy, can we go fishing this weekend? It does take some time, but the more simple that you can keep it, excuse me, the more fun they have early on. And the next thing you know, they get that same bug that you and I got whenever we got it, however we got it, and it turns into this passion that's lifelong for sure.
So the Rampage is perfect for that. Not to, I don't even think it's a boat that they make anymore.
Sure.
But a cabin with power and electronics, that'll take whatever limited attention span I have on fishing. It'll renew it. It'll recharge its batteries with some.
That's a good situation to be in, because you hit the nail on the head. They only have attention span that lasts so long. So as soon as things slow down, to have something else, so they're not just held captive on a boat. That was something with my son. I had an old boat that I kind of took from irrelevance back to its perfect form, and it was an 88 26 Blackwatch, and decked it out with all new electronics. It had this stupid Bimini top. It came from Florida. Engines were great, and I had a hardtop built on it. They had the cabin. I didn't use the cabin for anything other than storage, really, but it was still a place my kid could go get out from under, out of the the heat or whatever. And it it does help to, it is the perfect type of boat for that.
Oh, yeah.
So, we'd go out and I would be like, all right, I have a couple hours. I always wanted to do X, Y, and Z. I want to get my limit of sea bass. I want him to pull on some fish, have some fun, if it was just him and I. And it would always turn into like, all right, keep it simple to start. And then we'd kind of work him up the ladder, so to speak, so that he could, catch his own fish and not just reel them in.
Yeah.
And, know how the gear works. And then it got quickly turned into like, all right, you're on your own, you're getting it done, and it's fun. And it was like, when can we go? And it got to a point eventually where I'd get on the boat at 6:30 in the morning, would go out, and it would be like, my wife's like, are you guys coming back anytime soon? And it's like 4 p.m. And I'm like, yeah, I'll be back for dinner. I'm going to head back in now. I got a bunch of fish to clean. As soon as I would clear the jetty, he was like inconsolable. I want to stay out. Like, no, I don't want to go back. So like it takes some very calculated, keep it fun, keep it simple, keep it, high action. And then the rest kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah, you became a victim of your own success.
Yeah,
so when you're praying for rain at the end of the night, so he stops whining.
Yeah, there's some of those experiences. Like, I don't think people talk about like how to get kids, into fishing the right way is enough. So it's I'm happy this kind of turned in that direction, because I mean that's the future of our sport, right? And it's what keeps breeding more conservationists, to make sure there's more, the fish populations are being taken care of and respected. And, it's funny how those lessons kind of come up natural with kids. I remember, what was it? I think we were ice fishing, and my son was like, watch this. And he went to like shoot the fish into the hole, and he got it. It went right in, and I said, hey man, what happens if that fish nosedives on the ice? And like, how would you feel if you were thrown, face first into the ice from like 5 body lengths higher than, you are tall? Like, how bad would that hurt? And he's like, oh, that would hurt. I'd probably break my teeth, and, I'd have a bloody nose. I'm like, well, like, why would you want to do that to a fish that you were going to send back for somebody else to catch sometime? And like, he was like, yeah, I guess you're right. So then we were ice fishing like the next weekend, and he caught the first fish of the trip. And he's like, hey, get a picture. And he's like, get a video of my super careful, respectful release, he said. And I was like dying laughing. He's like, because Dad, you got to take care of the fish for the future. And I'm like,
a little sarcastic.
No, he was just like, he was just basically pointing it out that, hey, like, that made sense to me. And I'm on board with that. And it was like, he likes to like always look for Dad's validation, like any young boy would probably want. So like, I thought that was like, it's very cool that you're able to kind of teach them the right way to go about things at such an early age, and they retain that stuff, and they understand it, So like, for somebody that's been in this industry for a long time and have worked on the conservation side of things and understand some of the issues that, I worry about for like the next several generations of kids, I think it's good to kind of see that stuff play out as a young sportsman or sportswoman gets into the sport and like gets kind of the right tutelage, I guess. Like I had growing up with my dad, who talked about that stuff.
Yeah, you don't want like a jerk running around doing.
You see it with grown ass adults out there. You see people kicking fish back into the water, like through the sand, and it's just like,
yeah,
I mean, this is a 40, 50-year-old guy doing this to a fish who's definitely in some trouble when it comes to striped bass. And it's like, what the hell's wrong with you? You almost wish that, however you got fishing, I wish somebody was smart enough to be like, hey, like, this is the right way to do it, and that's the shitty way to do it, So I try to kind of...
It's Vinny and Sully down at the Maritime in the canal, throwing each other in the water, too.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of that stuff that goes on, but, it's gratifying to see them take an interest in the sport you're passionate about, for sure.
Shimano has rods and reels for every fishery in the Northeast, whether it's deep dropping the swordfish in the canyons, casting the stripers in the surf, or finessing panfish through the ice. That's about as wide a range of fishing applications as you're going to get. For inshore saltwater applications, the workhorse of the Shimano lineup is the Spheros SW combo. The Spheros SW is built with premium Shimano technologies like Infinity Drive, which increases cranking power and smoothness while fighting fish. The rods range from a 7-foot medium heavy to a 9-foot heavy and fit Spheros SW sizes from 5,000 to 8,000 for a range of lure and bait fishing. From the surf this past season, I used the Ultegra XR 14,000 XSD paired with the Shimano Tierlejo XX surf rod. The Ultegra XR is Shimano's most feature-packed surf reel to date, with the rigid cast spool support to stabilize the spool while casting heavy lures, Infinity Drive to increase winding power under pressure, and X-Protect technology to provide high-level water resistance. The Tierlejo XX is built for casting distance and durability. The 10'6", 1 to 3 ounce model was perfect for punching avid jigs through the wind during a sand eel bite in New Jersey last fall, and it was great for throwing pencil poppers to distant bluefish off the south side of Cape Cod. It's become my go-to combo when casting distance makes the difference in the surf. No matter what you're fishing for in the Northeast, Shimano has a rod and reel for it. To pick out your next setup, visit fish.shimano.com.
Have you done any togging?
So I got a good friend who has a commercial tag for to tog. He loves it. I can't get on board with it. It's super duper boring to me.
Yeah?
Well, like the
what
crabs.
makes it boring?
Well, because to tog is such it's like an elusive little fish. It hangs out in one spot. The bite is very gentle, right? And
I mean, there's those scratches at the beginning of it, which is frustrating. And if you set the hook there, you're never going to see a tog the rest of your life. It's like, it's technical.
Oh, it's super technical.
It's technical. It can be I think it's one of the most frustrating fish to target when you're just starting out, and it can suck if like you're not in the right places, you know.
It's funny. I've spearfished.
Yeah.
And you go spearfishing, you're just another, like, wearing a wetsuit and, like, fins. You just look like a seal to them. They don't care if you're there. You can almost shoot through one and hit another. They don't, like, with a fishing rod, to tog is hard.
Yeah.
Spearfishing, it's, like, the easiest thing I've ever done.
How old were you when you got into spearfishing?
So the dive school for the military is down in Key West.
Mm-hmm.
So I've fished a lot in Key West, too.
Okay.
And guys just always started doing it. So I went to dive school in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So since 2010, I've speared. I'm not like a huge spearer.
Yeah.
I've just done it before. And I just noticed whenever I'd be trying to target striper spearfishing, which is hard.
Yeah.
To target, I gotta like knock them out of the way.
Yeah.
To try to like find stripers and.
Yeah, there was I don't even know. I should know this. There was a spear fishing season, I think, in Rhode Island for striped bass. I don't know if it's still.
That's what it was when I was
thing.
That was years ago, though.
Yeah. I don't even know if it's still a thing, but people would say that was pretty exhilarating. What was it like in the Keys? You got such clear water.
The Keys is great.
What was that spearfishing like? And what did you mainly look like? What was?
You go after whatever's out there. Cobia is a lot of fun. That's a hell
That's
of a...
cool.
The cobia is a fight on a rod,
They're
too.
a badass species.
What do they call it, a mud shark?
Yeah, they're a badass species. I have actually never caught a cobia. I don't even know that I've quote unquote gone cobia fishing. It's high on the list.
Yeah,
they're very cool.
I got a buddy down in Key West. He skippers a yellowfin.
Yeah.
Eric Evans is his name. Good dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like he loves targeting cobia. He goes like 30 or 40 miles out into the Gulf from Key West. I think it's the Gulf of America. And he there's a bunch of shrimp boats out there that air out their gear in the middle of the day because they'll like fish night.
Yeah, and the cobia will just
underneath those
them.
boats, it's like a chum line.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so he just goes out there and there's fish everywhere. It's unbelievable. And I was catching cobia with him last time I was down there. But
have you ever spearfished hogfish down there? Have you shot one of those yet?
Hogfish,
those are delicious.
Triggerfish, grouper, snapper.
Yeah.
All the warm water fish. I mean, I'm not like the biggest fan of eating it.
Yeah.
Because I grew up here. You eat cold water fish,
there's a difference.
It's like Like you're eating at a sit-down restaurant versus fast food.
I see the biggest difference with oysters. Like
Yes,
eating
100%.
oysters down in the Caribbean, I won't even get them unless they're like breaded and fried, but like or like grilled or something like that. It's been one of my go-tos lately is getting the good grilled ones down there. But just shooting a raw oyster, like no thanks. It's like a warm booger versus like the most delicious thing you've ever had.
So-
between the Northeast cold water oysters and the
So my wife will kill me for telling you this, and like I just don't
she won't
care.
hear it.
Yeah, for sure. So my wife is from the southwestern corner of Virginia,
Okay.
and she always heard about oysters.
Yeah.
And they would go, her and her family would go to like Johnson City, Tennessee, and she's like, "Oh, there's an oyster place here," and I would
Tennessee.
like, "Oh, what?
Yeah.
Where? And what kind of oysters?" And so she's like, "I don't know, they're oysters." And you look at that oyster, and it's like this big.
Yeah.
It's like 14 inches long. It looks like a chicken pat. It's thick.
Yeah.
And you're like, "This is disgusting. I wouldn't eat this if you put a gun to my head." And she would eat them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're gross. This is disgusting. She came up here and started eating oysters, and she became like the biggest snob about oysters. So she knows the guy that owns Mary Oysters in Duxbury.
Yeah.
And she's like, I only eat Duxbury oysters, and or like I only eat these oysters
Yeah.
from here. Like she's such a snob, and then her family, bunch of like her dad's a sheriff down there. They're like in the hills.
Yeah.
They're I wouldn't go as far to call them rednecks, but they're definitely country folks, and they come up here and they're like, these oysters are so small. Like they're nothing
They
like
are
the Myrtle Beach oysters.
Yeah, they do run smaller. The cups, no matter where they're from, there's always a defining difference
Yeah.
of how deep the cup is, how briny they are. But like, they're so much better up here than
They are,
down there.
yeah.
They're almost a different texture down there. They're even firmer up here.
Yeah, it's just disgusting.
Yeah,
I
I
wouldn't
mean,
eat
there is some good fresh water. I mean, there is some good saltwater, table fare down there, species wise. Cobia, which we just talked about, is actually pretty damn good. Hogfish is great.
Hogfish is great. Triggerfish is good.
Triggerfish is. We've gotten some. The last triggerfish I caught was togging with my daughter, and she thought it was the coolest thing going.
Yeah.
And that thing was delicious. We got it right along the Elizabeth Islands.
Yeah. Every restaurant down in the Keys does the cook your catch.
That's
kinda
bullshit
deal.
that they don't do that up here.
It's
like, how
ridiculous.
awesome would it be? It's like it's some like stupid like Northeast FDA like red tape that prevents a lot of places from doing it. The closest one I know of is near a Long Island party boat that we filmed an episode of the Miss Montauk filmed an episode of At the Rail on, and he was like, "Oh, dude, you got to take it right across the way to this
Yeah,
place."
they'll
And
do whatever you want to.
they
They'll
made us
blacken-
like bang bang sea bass and like General Gao sea bass and like they did some fry. They did a bunch of different ways, and I'm like, why don't we have this stuff in mass? And it's like you talk to restaurant owners and they're like, yeah, because of this rule that the Mass Department of Food and Drug or whatever puts on us, like we can't offer that to our customer base. It's like trash.
Yeah, not to get political, but I say deregulate.
Yeah.
Get rid of that. I
want to bring my own seafood.
Yeah, I want to bring my own striper
It's going to be better than
to Quahog Republic.
yeah, it's going to be better than what you're getting unless,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
there's a couple good seafood distributors around here. Like the Clam Man's a local one. Like if you know that he's providing restaurant X with his stuff, it's going to be really good, but otherwise it's like kind of a crapshoot.
Well, you just try to eat your own.
That's always the best way to go about it. You know exactly how that fish was processed. What's your favorite fish to eat?
I could eat an entire, it's like 600-pound tuna by myself. You could eat the whole
I do
thing.
love tuna.
Yeah. And then a close second is black sea bass. I'll eat striper.
I've never liked striper all that much, but I think it's because of the fact that I grew up in Hull and like that was like probably the most frequent fish that would come home with.
It's
and
like the government cheese of
But
fish.
it was just the times. It was like I was 3, 4, 5, 6, and like we were fishing at the time, little center consoles, little sea crafts, and it was like, you know, I don't know, it was that old school like mentality that my dad had. You caught a fish, you threw it on the deck. Like it really never saw ice. It wasn't well taken care of. It definitely wasn't bled. Like I'm ridiculous. Like when I'm fishing on someone's boat, if they're throwing their fish in the live well or in a cooler or whatever, and they're not like, you know,
Not cutting the gills.
you're not cutting the gills and bleeding them, I'm like all over it, because it's like it makes such a big difference in keeping them cold. It's like there's a right way to do it, and there's kind of like the old way of doing it where it's like, no wonder I didn't like fish that much or stripers that much as a kid, because that thing was baking on the deck for like 8 hours, and then it would hit the grill and it would just be mush.
It's soft cooked.
Yeah,
Beforehand.
yeah, it was already parboiled by the sun. You know,
Flies were laying eggs. In
yeah.
it.
Oh no, thank you. So I think that's probably why I don't like striper. But it's also been like, I don't know. I love black sea bass. Tog is phenomenal. Tuna is one of my favorites as well. But I think it's like the size of the flake on a striper. It's big. It can be chewy.
It is big. Yeah.
You know, I
It's
don't know.
a tough one. If
It's
you were
not my
gonna-
It's not my favorite. I haven't kept one in forever. You know, it's just been. There's so much better stuff to eat.
There is. I mean, I'll eat striper if I catch it. I really like. I don't mind.
Yeah.
I kind of
Some
utilitarian.
people love it.
They do, and I for those people I say Godspeed.
Yeah.
But it's not the greatest fish in the world in my eyes to eat.
It's tough to beat black sea bass as far as the whitefish go, and there's so many good ground fish.
Especially
Flounder,
around
great.
here, it's
Yeah.
like when that black sea bass bites on, you can like scoop them with a net.
Where's through your military travels, is there like when you're overseas and stuff, do you ever have time off to go kind of mess around? Have you ever fished in any other crazy parts of the world just because of that military connection?
So you don't.
And fishing is fishing. Like if it's a hand line because like you have time off and you're messing around
No.
with the boys, I want to hear about it.
No, the more what I was getting at is the water in the places where I went was just disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, I went to Chittagong, Bangladesh
Yeah.
one time, and it's just the most disgusting water you've ever seen in your life. It's a river that spills out into the ocean, and if you look at it on Google Maps, it's just like
Straight pollution.
Well, it looks like Bangladesh threw up into the ocean. It's it's a very famous place.
Yeah.
You just don't know it. It's where they drive the boats. You'll see like YouTube videos of them driving like a 600-foot oil tanker up on the beach.
Yeah, I
And then
know
they
what
just-
you're talking about.
And then they just cut it apart with plasma torches.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And all that stuff just runs right downhill.
Oh, yeah, no. The EPA is right on top of them. They put like nets and no, of course, yeah, it's
That's
dumped
terrible.
in there. Everything that was in that ship that is not valuable to be sold for parts or metal just gets
It's
flushed
sad.
into the
We're the
ocean.
worst invasive species known to science, to history.
Yeah, definitely
humans.
to the Southeast Asia
Yeah.
area.
There's no Baghdad charter captains, that are
That's another
doing a big business over there,
like the Tigris Euphrates.
giving great experiences to.
No, that river that runs straight through Baghdad. That's another. That's just
Another cesspool.
well, it's all raw sewage.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm sure there's fish in there every once in a while. So part of big.
I'm gonna
part
go
of
with tilapia. I would say that river's probably full of tilapia. If anybody that's listening to this actually eats tilapia, please reconsider, because they literally are perfectly fine just existing off poop.
Yeah. So part of my job, we sit down a lot with like at meals with our foreign counterparts, and a big part of it is eating local food. And I remember times in Afghanistan eating local river, like the same river that they flush
Yeah.
their like
Doo-doo in.
well, yeah, I'd say toilets, but they don't really. Afghanistan's a very impoverished country,
Sure.
so they just throw all their garbage into the river, and they pull fish out of it, and they cook it like, what's the style of like trout, like Branzino style or whatever it is.
Over an open flame.
Yeah, with like slices in it,
Yeah.
and these Afghans like put it in front of us, and we're like, oh, good.
I know where that came from.
There's no, I mean, all you do is grin and bear it, and you just eat it, and it's the most disgusting fish you've ever had in your life. It's horrible.
Makes
And
you appreciate what we have.
Yeah, you're going to be on the toilet for like 6 days
Yeah.
getting rid of that fish.
No thanks.
Yeah, my foreign fishing. I did swim with the whale sharks off of Djibouti though.
That seems insane. Like
It's
I've seen a lot. Like that's basically where they have this biomass of spawning whale sharks, and comes, you see it on all those viral like reels of like how cool this is. It's like turquoise, crystal clear water.
Yeah, the water's really nice.
And like you can see
Boiling hot.
several. Yeah, it is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's
how-
toasty off the Horn of Africa.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, the Navy does.
What was that like?
It's really cool. It's a long steam out there. It's a couple hours to get out there, but the Navy does an MWR trip out there, morale, welfare, and recreation.
Yeah.
So Djibouti, the capital of Djibouti is named Djibouti. It has this massive Navy base that's like an airstrip and everything, but it's very much like a college campus. It's got like soccer fields and stores and restaurants and everything. And they do a trip offshore when I was there to swim with the whale sharks. And
That's very
It's
cool.
awesome. It's
Yeah.
a great experience.
That's very cool. That has to be like I always said. I'm like, if I ever have a chance to swim with a whale shark, I'm getting in. And
Oh, yeah,
we
it's
had
awesome.
Larry Backman, who does a lot of like canyon fishing on the podcast, and it led to going out on his boat, and one of the first things we saw was a whale shark, and I was like about to, because he said if I see one, he had never seen one. And I was like, I've always wanted to see one, and we happened to see one. And I was like, Larry, we going in? But like we had all these rods already over, and it was like just too much of a pain to get. But it happened so quick. It like rolled up on us, and we were like, I was like, whale shark, and then it sounded, because they don't like the feeling of like current going across fishing lines. It like freaks them out.
Yeah.
So it kind of took off, and I'm like, if that thing comes back up, I'm jumping in the water with it. But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, that's such a big creature. You're out in the canyons. It could be like a 4,000 or 5,000 pound tiger shark, like hiding under it. Like you wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
But like,
man.
I'd want to do that. That seems pretty damn cool.
Sharks are they're the worst.
Yeah, we have a growing population of white sharks, and you
Good.
know, get rid of the seals, please.
Agreed.
More sharks. I root for the sharks.
Yeah,
You know,
we had
every year.
We had an instructor in dive school a portion of dive school is like a 10-minute block of instruction on dangerous marine life.
Yeah.
So they go through like the big ones, like the Atlantic box jellyfish, the yellow and blue ringed octopus,
Yeah.
and then the like sea urchins and shit like that, jellyfish stings, man o' wars, and then sharks. They're like
What's the book on defending yourself in the water on sharks say?
I mean, it's the same thing, you punch eyes and gill, like it's over.
Yeah.
If a big enough shark sees you,
It's a
and wants-
futile set of directions.
and do you really want to live like with like a half moon
No.
cut out in the middle of your body? No, just accept that it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And scream your way into the like off the back of your down east like Quint at the end of Jaws. Just accept it. Like I would accept it.
That'd be a pretty bad way to go.
Bitten in
But
half.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, like that is got to be one of the most horrifying. Like if you see it happen, it like, oh, come on.
So I've seen a pretty big tiger when I was
Seen a big great
diving.
white.
Haven't seen a white underwater.
I feel like tigers. I feel like. I mean, granted, if one wants to eat you bad enough, it's gonna probably eat you. But like, I think I've seen enough of the videos where like they just kind of get steered away. Where it's
Yeah.
like I could do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You think like I could do that, but like if one really wants to eat you, that's one that's just kind of curious, not one that's like I'm eating this son of a bitch right here.
Yeah.
Like you're not steering that effort away.
So the majority of the diving we do is at night,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't dive any lights or anything. It's so you have like the glow in the dark from your watch or a compass.
Yeah.
And so generally, so what
Just
they
enough
teach-
light to see like a glimmer of a big triangular tooth as it's about to close on you.
Oh, more.
You feel it first. You don't even see it.
Yeah. Good God. I just hope I hope it's quick.
Yeah.
When it happens. But I do remember one night dolphins are usually super curious when we're underwater, and I just remember glancing over, and there's a body like 6, 8, 10 feet long. I couldn't tell. It's in the middle of the night, and it smooth skin with fin-like appearance, and I just glanced, and it was about here-ish. And I've never had a more terrifying moment in my life than being underwater at night with something bigger than me right next to me.
And a bomb exploded right next to you.
No, that was unexpected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, the bomb was over immediately. I still had like an hour left on this dive.
Yeah.
So I had to swim around under the water, knowing that everything out there knows you're in the water, but you don't know anything else is out there. That's the worst part. They all can sense you.
Yeah, no, you're in their environment, and you are severely handicapped first them in any kind of a situation.
Yeah, everybody thinks that we carry like a knife to like fight sharks. It's useless.
Yeah, that's wild. So yeah, I mean this coming full circle. It all started with Harold. Fishing for the Mission 22. You can check them out at fishingwiththemission22.org if you want to get involved. They do run an annual sea bass tournament
I think it's
every
coming
year.
up.
It's coming up at the end of May. This will probably come out after that tournament has happened, but they do some really cool stuff. It's all supporting veterans, and it's local. There's cash prizes. There's all kinds of gear and swag that you can win. They have a bunch of awesome sponsors, and it goes to a great cause. So you can check that out at www.fishingforamission.org. And I want to say it's like very end of May every year they do their Black Sea Bass tournament. So if you didn't fish it this year, then keep it on the calendar for going forward. Because again, it goes to raising awareness for veterans that unfortunately are dealing with PTSD and suicide at an alarming rate. And if it's one thing that we can do to support, I highly recommend jumping on board.
Agreed.
So thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you very much.
And hearing some of your stories and how fishing has kind of been a central part of your life is
frustrating.
It's been a pleasure. Well, hey, maybe the Rampage is going to get out there and be up and running in true orca fashion.
I hope so. Yeah, we'll have to
and
get out
you can go out there and make it less frustrating, more enjoyable.
Yeah. I'll just bring iPads for the kids and
Give that some, keep it simple, and it will take on its own path to being enjoyable and less frustrating.
Yeah, right on.
Take my advice.
Yeah.
It'll work in that scenario and that scenario only.
Yeah.
Can't really help you anywhere else.
No, for sure.
But hey, man, Chris, thank you for coming in. It was a
Thanks for
pleasure
having
having
me.
you. And Godspeed, buddy.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.